All right. Hi, everybody. So, this week we are going to focus on food and plants. And so, last week we focused on hands, which I did encourage you to get imaginative with and expressive with in terms of how you rendered those hands out. I mean, they should be the hand, but you can use a little bit of your imagination to exaggerate certain aspects of the hand, add fingernails, whatever it was. So, this week we're going to keep building on that, but we're going to work with some organic forms that are a little bit more complex in terms of the types of, contrast they have and smoothness and texture and different types of surface textures. So, for this week, we're going to focus on food and plants. So, you're going to do 3 different drawings this week. I'll get into the details of that here pretty soon, but I just wanted to talk about some different imagery of food and plant drawings so you can kind of think about how you want to address, how you create value to create depth and texture on your drawings. So here, the first drawing I have, if I zoom in too much, it gets too pixelated. So this is a drawing of cauliflower with the leaves still around it. And you can see here that the cross-hatching was the tool of preference to create value, which creates depth on this particular cauliflower. And then, of course, we have sort of wiggly lines drawing and rendering out the cauliflower itself. There's not a lot of gradation and value on the cauliflower itself because it's white, right? And it's also kind of a matte material, so it's not going to reflect light very dramatically. Then, of course, we have the leaves that have a little bit more value action because they have a little bit more physical texture, and they're also catching light a little differently. Those bigger parts of the leaves are probably a lighter green technically than the other part. So here's an apple. So the texture of choice to create value here was also it was cross hatching. And then you see you have the apple here cut in half, showing the inside. And so, here's an example of a really smooth object, and the artist chose cross hatching, which isn't something that really comes to mind at first, typically when you think of something smooth, but this is an example of a successful way that somebody used cross-hatching to create an apple drawing. Okay, let me just shut that off and bring up my next layer. Nope. So here's just some other examples of food. Here we just have hatching being used as the texture here. This is very, simple. I would encourage you that, so you're going to kind of go about this the same way that you did with the hands, right? You're going to first map out your contours, use your skill sets from measuring angles and measuring to get the contour of the object down, and then you're going to go in and use, all the tools that we've been building up in terms of different things we can use for value to create dimensionality. So here's just some more examples. This is a drawing of, maybe somebody who's in a beginning drawing class. So I thought I'd show something that is going to be more reflective of probably what, a lot of your drawings are going to end up kind of looking like. But you can see, so the main use of value here is blended gradients, for the most part. So yeah, you're going to try your best with perspective, but food and plants are hard, which is kind of funny because food and plants, there's a lot of crossover there, right? Like a lot of plants are food. So I guess I would what am I trying to say? Oh my gosh. I would define this as, keep food to things that you eat. That could be anything that you could eat. It could be a peanut butter and jelly sandwich if you want. A lot of people go for fruits and vegetables. I also encourage you to pick something that has an interesting texture. If it doesn't have a lot of different types of surfaces, You know, like an apple's fine, but you might want to cut the apple in half and draw it that way. Kind of like how you see this banana here. It's a little bit more interesting to draw if it's cut in half. So you might think about that. Just drawing a regular round apple, it doesn't really have a lot. Doesn't really have a lot of variation in what you see in the object itself there. So, okay, we've got some more apples. So just some more examples of different ways to choose. Here's a very highly rendered, detailed drawing of 2 apples. So, you know, if you really want to challenge yourself, you can see they've gone in with their eraser to create that freckled texture on the apple surface. This one's very, you know, they chose very smooth objects and rendered it out in a very smooth way. And then we have some more creative kind of approaches. And, you know, I have the video of Charles Birchfield, which I want you to be inspired by that when you do the plants. And then also the video of the food illustrator, and think about the types of things that she was saying in the video. Like, it's not that you can draw it realistically. We can just take a photograph. But how do you interpret the food, you know, in your own expressive way? And so I really like this image of mushrooms, for example, where we've got these little splotches of ink. Of course, we're not using ink in this class, but that's okay. But you can create the same kind of look with charcoal, you know. But it's the imperfections in how it's drawn is what makes the mushrooms interesting. So, you know, feel free to start playing around with that stuff. And then here's another one where stippling was used. I know how much you all love stippling, but this is a really creative use of different textures to create value. So if you want to do something kind of like this, you're welcome to do that as well. You're probably going to feel most comfortable with the things we've been working on so far this term, but you know, feel free to use some of those early on. Again, I know stippling is everybody's best friend, but just kidding. Okay, so in terms of plants, here's a couple different drawings of plants. So this one definitely heavily focuses on contour and then just looks for the very darkest values. Went back in there and added some details, some nice details here for that. Now, again, you can be, you know, a little imaginative and a little expressive with this in the same way that you were with your hand drawings. So if you want to go in to the drawing and you want to add some details that maybe don't exist, let's see. So maybe I, you know, draw the leaves, drawing the leaves. And I go in and I add my textures. You know, if you want to go in and add, like, let's say a freckled surface or something on the leaves, you can do that. If you want to be imaginative and, like, you could add hair. Or, like, cactus pricks if you wanted, little prickles. You know, so feel free to play around with it. It still needs to look like the food or plant that you drew, but you can start adding details in, because we're going to, starting next week, we're going to start talking about drawing from memory and then get into imaginative drawing. So you're going to start to get to use all these technical tools that you learned for, like, your base drawings, and then you're going to kind of go crazy and start doing the imaginative illustrative stuff. So for those of you that really like that kind of drawing, thanks for being patient with me this term. You will be let loose soon and be able to do, you know, imaginative illustrative stuff, fantastical drawings. Here's just an example of a plant using stippling. So, you know, I encourage you to play around with stippling. It really is a nice tool. I think people think it's the most annoying, clearly, because it takes the most amount of time. So anyways, I don't really have a lot of demo stuff this week because we've gone through, like, quite a few different techniques together. So why don't I just shut that off, and then we'll go through the technical components of what you need to do. So I want you to complete 2 drawings. I'm sorry, 3 drawings total. So a little different than our hands where we did 4 contours. So we've got contours down, right? So this time, what I'm going to have you do is, let's see, how do I want to call this? So you're going to take one piece of paper and you're going to split it into 2. And I want you to choose 1 plant and 1 food. And I want you to choose something interesting for both. If it's not interesting to draw, it's not gonna be any fun to draw. And it doesn't do you any good really to pick something easy, because you're not like pushing yourself. Even though actually the apples look simple, but they're hard. And they actually think things that are smooth are harder personally, but anyways, choose something interesting. So if you're not interested in drawing it, then the whole thing's a wash. So 1 plant and 1 food, and I'm gonna say that I would suggest 45 minutes on each. You need to have contour. You need to have value, texture, and you need to replicate light hitting the object as best you can on both of these. All right, and so the last one, I want you to gather a few different things, and this is going to be a fully rendered still life. And let's say that this one needs to have a 5 object minimum. So let's say, for example, you've got, a house plant. Do you like that plant? Some grapes, perhaps. Maybe a carrot kind of coming this way. Maybe you've got some other kind of house plant back here. And you could also get stuff from outside and draw that as well. You could do your still life outside if you want, depending on how the weather is. What other food? What could be interesting that isn't fruit or vegetables? Maybe like, trying to think of something living. Well, I don't know. Maybe just a head of cabbage or lettuce or something. It's all about having rich textures to work with, because we did a lot with the hand, but you run out of stuff with the hand because skin kind of looks the same over your whole hand. So this is a whole new ball game. All right, so 45. I'm going to say I would spend at least 1 hour and a half. That doesn't really make sense. 1 hour, 30 minutes on this. So that's about 3 hours of drawing. So it's just going to be really focused, detailed drawing from here on out. But hopefully you feel like you have a skill set to work with. And then, like I said, we're going to get into that imaginative realm next week. Drawing these items from still life and trying to replicate all these different textures, you're actually building up a library of ways to draw things, whether you realize it or not. So this is all going to be helpful and useful and necessary for you to do your imaginative drawings and make those interesting. So anyway, okay, so that's it. 3 drawings, 2 half pages, 1 plant, 1 food, and then you're going to do a full still life with 5 objects. And, again, like I've been saying, you need to put the time into it. I need to see that you're using different textures to render out value. and that you're considering how the light is hitting. So if the time and detail isn't there, it's not that the detail needs to look realistic necessarily, obviously, right? This is just beginning drawing, but I need to see that you're trying to use it successfully. But if I don't see that effort there, then the time is not being spent on it. All right. Well, cool. Well, have fun with this, everybody, and have a good rest of your week. And let me know if you have any questions, okay? All right. Bye.